It started on a warm Saturday afternoon, one of those rare days when the world felt like it slowed down just for us. I had been looking forward to this weekend for a while. Ever since Kyle and I started dating 3 months ago, our time together had always been limited. His job at the tech startup kept him busy during the week, and most weekends were consumed by friends, errands, or family obligations. But this weekend was different. He had promised me uninterrupted time, just the two of us at his family's lake house tucked away in northern Michigan. I packed lightly, just enough clothes for 2 nights, a book I wouldn't end up reading, and my favorite sweater for when the sun went down. The drive was peaceful, filled with our favorite music and conversations that dipped in and out of silly and meaningful. By the time we pulled into the gravel driveway that led to the secluded house, I felt completely at ease. The trees lining the lake were a deep green, the kind that made everything feel clean and timeless. The lake itself shimmered, catching the light in a way that made it look almost unreal. The house wasn't huge, just cozy. It had this rustic charm with its creaky floorboards and mismatched furniture. Kyle carried our bags inside while I walked down the small path that led to the dock. I stood there for a few minutes, letting the quiet sink in. It was peaceful, like the world outside didn't exist. He came up behind me and slipped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "You like it?" he asked softly. I nodded. "It's perfect." The first night was everything I imagined. We cooked dinner together, laughing at his terrible chopping skills and my even worse attempts to open a bottle of wine. We sat out on the porch watching the stars, wrapped up in that sweater I had brought and a blanket we found in the closet. He told me stories about summers spent here as a kid, about fishing with his dad and the time his little brother fell off the dock trying to catch a frog. It felt like something out of a movie, just the two of us, no distractions, no interruptions. The next morning, we woke up late. Sunlight poured into the bedroom, and I could hear birds chirping outside the window. Kyle rolled over and kissed my forehead. "Still want pancakes?" he asked, his voice rough from sleep. I smiled and nodded. We spent the morning in pajamas, making pancakes that were slightly burnt but still delicious, and dancing around the kitchen to a playlist of old-school hits. We lounged on the dock that afternoon, dipping our toes in the water and talking about everything and nothing. It was the kind of day that makes you believe you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I must have dozed off for a bit, because when I woke up, Kyle was gone. I sat up, blinking in the sunlight, and looked toward the house. That's when I heard the unmistakable sound of voices, multiple voices, and laughter. I stood up, brushing the sleep from my eyes and walking slowly back up the path. As I rounded the corner, I froze. There they were. 3 guys and 1 girl standing in the kitchen, chatting and laughing like they belonged there. Kyle was in the middle of them, looking surprised to see me. "Hey, babe," he said, stepping forward. "I didn't expect you to be up yet." I looked around at the new faces. One of the guys was tall with a man bun, another was shorter and stockier, and the third looked like he had just stepped out of a surf magazine. The girl was pretty in that effortlessly stylish way. "Everyone, this is Hannah," Kyle said, gesturing to me. "Guys, this is the girl I've been telling you about." I forced a smile and gave a small wave, still trying to understand what was going on. Kyle noticed my confusion and quickly added, "I didn't know they were coming either. They said they were nearby and wanted to stop in. It's just for a little bit." I nodded slowly, trying to play it cool, even though my stomach was starting to twist. I had been so sure this weekend was just for us. And now it felt like that bubble had popped. His friends were nice, I'll admit. Loud and energetic, but nice. They introduced themselves. Matt was the surfer guy, Josh the one with the man bun, Aaron the stocky one, and the girl was Rachel, Josh's girlfriend. They all seemed genuinely excited to meet me. I kept telling myself not to overreact. Maybe they really were just passing through. Maybe they'd leave soon. But hours passed. And they didn't leave. By evening, they had cracked open beers, fired up the grill, and turned the quiet sanctuary into something else entirely. Music played from a Bluetooth speaker someone had brought, and the dock was now crowded with towels, drinks, and voices. I watched Kyle laughing with his friends, completely at ease. It was like he had slipped back into another version of himself, one I hadn't met yet. I sat on the porch swing, watching them from a distance. Eventually, he came over and sat beside me. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" I nodded. "I just thought it would be different." He rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable. "I didn't plan this, I swear. But I haven't seen these guys in months. They're heading out tomorrow morning. Can we just roll with it for tonight?" I didn't want to be the girl who made a scene. So I agreed, smiled, and said I understood. But inside, I felt something shift. That night, we all sat around a fire pit in the backyard. Everyone shared stories, laughed, and passed around marshmallows and drinks. I tried to join in, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being on the outside. Rachel seemed nice enough, and she made an effort to include me. But I couldn't help but notice the way Kyle and his friends had their own language, their inside jokes and memories that I wasn't a part of. It was like being invited to a party where everyone knew each other and you were the stranger. I went to bed early, pretending to be tired. Kyle stayed out with his friends. I lay in bed listening to their laughter carry through the window. I tried not to feel resentful, but I did. The next morning, I woke up alone. I found him in the kitchen, bleary-eyed and tired. "They're packing up," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "Thanks for being cool about it." I didn't say anything, just nodded. The friends left around noon, with hugs and promises to hang out again soon. Once they were gone, the house felt strangely quiet. Kyle turned to me, sensing the distance between us. "Talk to me," he said gently. I took a deep breath. I wanted time with you. That's all. I don't mind your friends, but it felt like I was just tagging along at someone else's reunion." He looked genuinely remorseful. "You're right. I should have said no, or at least made sure they didn't stay the whole night. I messed that up." We spent the rest of the afternoon trying to get back to where we were before the interruption. We went for a long walk through the woods, cooked dinner together again, and even took the canoe out onto the lake. Slowly, the quiet returned. The next morning, we packed up and drove home. The ride was more subdued than the one that brought us there. We held hands, but the air between us was a little heavier. That weekend taught me something, not just about